may be seated. Thank you.
Someone tell me who.
Mike Sweeney.
Mike Sweeney.
Mr. Sweeney. Still working on the sunshine. Nobody's up far. Good afternoon, now, morning.
Good morning. Dr. Sweeney, please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear that the evidence that you should give will take the trial and honest consideration. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and the pain and penalty for every basis.
You state your name for the record
Michael Sweeney,
and your title.
District Manager of Probation and Parole.
And what area physically do you cover as part of your so-called district?
Washington County and Vermont County.
So anything in those two counties sort of has to go through you?
That's correct.
And did you and I ever have a face-to-face meeting?
Yes, we did.
You want to describe that?
I believe we met in the booking room of Barry Probation and Parole. I believe 5 or 10 minutes or something like that.
And it wasn't for, of course, booking, right?
That's correct.
What was that meeting all about?
You had been ordered in so that we can arrange for you to meet with your new probation officer, Kristen DeForge.
And did I, in fact, by virtue of being in that room, get there?
Yes, sir.
And was there any problem in me getting there?
Not in that specific instance. Prior to that, I had to call you and request you to come in because you refused to come in.
Did I tell you that I had medical issues that sort of precluded or together with other issues going on in my life that basically I physically couldn't get down to the office?
I believe you did, yes.
And during those times, did you ever turn around and say to me, well, if you can't come down, I'll take a trip up to you?
No, I did not.
Did I ask you?
I believe you asked if the probation officer could, yes, sir.
Well, in other words, wouldn't you consider your time more valuable than, say, a probation officer? That if I asked that a probation officer come up, and let's say that probation officer was tied up, as the probation officer stand in for whatever deals that they basically wanted to discuss with me, you could probably have taken care of whatever that might have been?
At that point in time, I was a supervisor. I wasn't a probation officer, so I supervised staff, not offenders. So at that point in my career, I did not go out and do field checks.
Well, what type of meeting was this? Was this particular thing, say, a drug test or a home or strike that? Was this like for a drug test, or what was the main reason other than I had a new probation officer that I was meeting?
You had gone from high-risk supervision to low-risk supervision, and you had a new probation officer, and she gave you an initial appointment, and I was basically backing her up in that and requesting it for commission.
And did I state to you that I had a couple of medical issues that as I said, were problems?
Yes.
And isn't it true that I called you and spoke to the new probation officer, Kristen DeForge, on my way down to your office?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And did I tell you where I physically was?
I don't recall if you did or not, sir.
Did I mention that I'm coming down by Green Mountain Transit bus?
Yes, you did.
And did I say something about how close I was to the courthouse?
I believe you told me that you lived within a mile or two of the office.
And basically, the method of transportation, you knew it was by bus, right? There was no question that I told you I was coming down by bus.
I believe you said you were coming by bus, yes.
And did you say anything in terms of that I should not bother coming down that particular day?
I believe that was after you had called and you had been harassing my officer and stating that you had been in the
Objection,
media
Your
with
Honor.
I'm sorry, you asked the question, Mr.
But he's
Nolen.
characterizing it as harassment.
He can characterize it however he wants. Let him finish his statement. Go ahead, sir.
I had requested, I got involved in it because my probation officer had been frustrated because she was unable to communicate with you, because you had been yelling at her over the phone, threatening lawsuits, threatening to bring the media with you when you came to your appointment. So I believe I called you back and said, if you're not going to come in on your own and do this the normal way, then you do not have to come in today, and we'll make other arrangements.
But didn't I have this conversation and I explained to you where I was, that I was running a little bit late because I couldn't twist GMTA's scheduling around. That basically, I was a couple of blocks, as you said, from the courthouse. Didn't you tell me at that point, don't bother coming in?
No, it was after the fact that you had called back and said you'd be bringing the media with you. Because we gave you, basically, you had to be there by the close of business,
And what's the close of business time?
4:30.
And what time did I actually arrive and then we had this meeting in the Turkey office?
I can't say off the top of my head, sir.
It was before 4:30, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. In that meeting, did I show any body part?
Yes, sir. You removed your shoe and I believe your sock, and you showed me a toe.
I'm really glad to hear that's all it was. I wasn't sure where we were going. Just got me scared there.
It was the only way that I could get.
Sorry,
You know,
go ahead.
But that purpose was. Isn't true, well, at that body part, what did you see?
I observed some type of wound on your big toe.
And about what size was it?
I would say it was probably the size of a quarter.
Okay. Now, when you saw that, I assume you don't have any medical training.
Formerly, I was an EMT.
Okay. What did you think about when you saw that big toe?
It appeared to be a sore, some type of open wound to your toe.
Would you say, with whatever expertise, that walking on that particular foot would have been major problems for me?
I can't say whether it would be a major problem or not. That's an individual determination on how much somebody can tolerate. With an open wound to a toe, it could be painful, absolutely.
Okay. So, suppose basically I said to you that I represented to the new probation officer that I had that particular issue. Wouldn't it be reasonable to say that, and you mentioned that basically to get somebody to come see me, whether it be you or them, to come to my house, that was a pretty fair request?
I wouldn't say it would be a fair request, no, sir.
Why is that?
For one, you were on lowest probation. That particular officer has a caseload of roughly 100 to 150 people. She basically sees people in her office. She's not a field officer, so she doesn't go out and do home checks. We have a limited number of correctional officers that we will send out to people that are on low-risk probation, usually when it's an emergency or something to that effect. A sore on your toe, to me, would not have risen to that level where I would have justified sending out staff to see you at home.
And didn't I also tell you that I was about to undergo surgery of some sort?
Yes, you did.
And specifically, what did I tell you about that surgery?
I believe you said it would require a long recovery period.
And being your particular position, did I physically actually tell you what the intent of the surgery or to correct whatever symptom I had was?
I believe it had something to do with surgery, something about your intestines, sir, if memory serves me.
If I said that I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, would that bring back any memory?
It may have something to do with it, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you and I and this officer have another conversation before this particular meeting where I told you that I was at a doctor's office and that I was going to put the phone on speaker so that this doctor could actually hear the conversation? Remember that?
I don't, sir.
And didn't I basically say that I was down south, either in the Randolph, Bethel area, when you had called at that particular time, you were quite insistent that I come up there that day?
I don't believe so, sir, no. Not to my recollection, no.
Did I basically say to you at any time, we've only had, how many conversations have we had together?
I would say probably 2 over the phone and that 1 in person.
Okay, so one was basically my going to your office. The other was basically something else and the office. That other conversation, what was that all about?
Kristen DeForge, the probation officer, had been on the phone with you. She was having a difficult time communicating with you. She had requested that I come in and speak to you over the phone.
And did I not say to you that between my foot, between my cancer surgery, that I was in terrific pain, couldn't we turn around and schedule this at my house or some other place so that I wouldn't have to physically come down to you?
There were 2 conversations that I recall. The one that was in the probation officer's office, basically, it was difficult to get a word in edgewise. You had been making comments about threatening lawsuits and that you would, you'd be dealing with all of us in the future through the court system. And basically, I had to end the conversation because I couldn't get a word in edgewise.
I'd like to show you Exhibit 16, or what the court has as 16. Let ask if you recognize it, okay? Excuse me, I didn't give you the correct one. This particular one, my certification. Thank you.
And your question is, do I recognize this?
Yes.
It's not bringing anything.
I'm sorry?
I'm not, no.
I believe
don't
this
recognize
is the state's version of their number 9, Mr. Ross.
We marked 16 earlier. He knows.
Well, I'm saying, he's got numbers, I got numbers, and the court has numbers.
Okay.
This is number 9.
Exhibit 9 is Mr. Sharon's report.
I believe that Mr. Nolen is referring to some prior base stamping, Your Honor.
Okay, so it's Exhibit 16 for the court purposes. In any case, you said, sir, you do not recognize
I do not
it?
recognize this document. No.
Okay.
Did you, at any point in time, examine each and every document the department basically had at the spot that related to me?
I did not.
You're saying that before you came to this trial today, you didn't take a look at all the documents that the Attorney General has that relates to the Department of Corrections?
I did not. I reviewed your probation conditions, actually.
And what would you say if I told you that that document was given to your department that was basically offered by the Attorney General's office as part of the discussion?
What would I say about the document?
Yeah. In other words, basically, it's not like 2011 to now, it's basically 3 years or more. Wouldn't you basically have had to see it if it was in the file?
Objection.
Sustained. You don't need to answer that.
Didn't there come a time, sir, that you and Christian DeForge submitted something to a court about my quote-unquote supervision?
Objection.
Why don't you come up and explain what you're talking about, Mr. Nolan?